Retro Hangover is supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes, Ashton Ruby, Randall Quiggle, Tony G, Katie Quigg, Paul Ramallo, Jared Kernop, and Masked Llama. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated.
Open your ears and crack some beers. You are listening to episode 89 of Retro Hangover.
Hello, retro and classic gamers. Welcome to the podcast where we are dubiously, daringly, dauntlessly creating qualified queued quests questionably. Ooh. This is episode 89 of Retro Hangover. I am your co-host, Chris Copleen, with special guest, Cade Call of the Gaming Memories podcast. And, as always, your host, Shane, Questing Dick Dragon Wyakowski.
It's always a guessing game trying to figure out when to start talking after he does that, because Discord just cannot handle his intensity.
I know,
and I appreciate it.
Right after he said dick something, it cut out, and then he came back in with some more words, and then I just started laughing. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe changing that one up, but I didn't get around to it in the notes. Something to the effect of descendant of the legendary Dick Dragon hero or something like that, but we'll go with it.
We'll do that for Dragon Quest 2. Okay. It turns 35 next year.
Great. There you go. You heard it here first.
I think it turns 35. I don't know. We don't care about that game today. We care about Dragon
Some of
Quest.
us don't care about this game today either.
Apparently.
Spoilers.
Fuck. Spoiler alert, the game sucks. I'm just going to say it right now.
All right. Well, that's been episode 89.
Episode's over. We're done. See ya.
And we know who's not invited back for Dragon Quest 2.
I don't want, you'd have to pay me, and price is too high.
If you have to ask, you can't afford it.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
All he wants is one Bitcoin. God.
If only.
I would play Dragon Quest 2 for a Bitcoin, just for the record.
True.
So in any case, Shane, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right. I have officially completed Nier on my Xbox 360, which is to say that it's as if I never played it at all.
Spoilers.
What? No, nobody fucking knows what that means. Shut up. And as I said in the Discord, I am, as the kids say, shooketh at what has occurred in that game. But
the kids say that?
I don't know. They did like a year ago, I think. I don't know. I'm old.
I never knew when they said that.
Yeah. That's because you're not hip like I am, Chris.
Which Nier was it? Was it Automata or the first one?
The OG, baby.
The OG. Ooh.
Yeah.
I've never played either of them, and both are huge cult classic. Chris has been telling me to play it forever.
Yes.
I started Automata and I got like a few hours in, but then the new one came out or the new old one came out on Steam.
Yeah.
And I thought, what would you say? Should I play that one first before finishing Automata, or does it matter?
It does not matter.
Wait for our next episode.
A single fucking bit.
All I know about it is it's like super weird meta play over and over again, crazy heavy-handed philosophy it is Kojima stuff.
It is amazing, and I am now a fan of it 100%, but also it has nothing to do with Automata or vice versa, I guess. So yeah, but I would highly recommend playing it, but it doesn't matter what order you do it in.
Okay.
Play Automata first.
Yeah. That's probably true. Then you won't be probably disappointed. Anyway, stay tuned for that episode later.
Yes. We have a couple baking.
Yeah. But anyway, outside of finishing up Nier, which I was happy about, I of course played the game du jour, which didn't take a whole lot of time at all, which I was also happy about. And I gotta be honest, right now I'm kind of in like this weird in-between stage that I sometimes get into, in that I'm not really sure what I'm going to be focusing on next necessarily. Honestly, the biggest thing currently is playing The Last Door on Steam, which we've been streaming the past couple of Sundays on our Stream Sunday, which was like a surprise hit with our audience. So everybody's been demanding that we continue playing The Last Door. So I've been enjoying it. It's a pixelated sort of Victorian horror point and click adventure game. And it's very well done. And I have been thoroughly enjoying it. And apparently the folks that regularly hop into our Twitch chat seem to enjoy listening to me narrate the story. So it's a win-win. But other than that, I kind of have to decide on what I want to really stick to next, I guess.
I've never heard of this, but it looks awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is very well done. I wasn't sure what I thought getting into it initially, but it grabs you pretty quickly. And you'd think that like the art style would not lend itself very well to being like unsettling, but it does. It does.
I love the tagline on their website. It says low res, high suspense. Yeah,
exactly.
That's fair.
It's like something you would see on a really good like Grindhouse poster.
It's nice.
Yeah, I've never. I'll have to try this out. This looks. I like what it looks like.
Just swing by our Twitch chat. You'll dig it, man.
Yeah.
Just swing on by. But in any case, hey, Cade, like we have not officially been on a podcast together in a long time. I think it was the last time we were on your show. I don't even know how long ago that was. It's like almost a year.
Correct.
It's gone by quick.
Correct.
It's gone by quick.
Was that in the before times? I think it was.
I think it was.
When I had you guys on, I remember you saying you had just started up again after like 2 periods of a break, because the podcast has been around for a while, from I remember, right? But there was like 2 breaks, one being bigger, and you were recently back when I had you on, if I remember correctly.
Oh shit, that was a while ago then.
Holy shit. Yeah, that was definitely the before times. So it's great to have you on our show. I'll say that.
Thank you.
It's long overdue, man. But what have you been up to lately? What have you been playing? How's the podcast going? Gaming Memories? How's all that shit going, man?
I have a lot of episodes recorded. I'm just really slow on turnaround time, but I have a good backlog. Getting to the point where people are reaching out to me to be on, which means the consistency will be better, because I can just, if I'm being a little bit lazy, I can just say yes to someone instead of having to proactively reach out to someone. I'm hovering right around 1 a month, which is fine by me, because I like to spend my time gaming, and I've been really, really, really into Onimusha Warlords, the remaster of the first Onimusha game on PS2. I don't know why. Something about it just caught my mood at the right time. It's pretty easy going back and playing that after doing all these Souls-like action games. It's very easy, and it's like the right mood where I can just chill out, put a podcast on, or listen to some music and just go through the game. And it has a lot of quality of life improvements on the way you can switch between weapons. Spoiler alert, they cleared up having to spend unnecessary time in menus, which is very nice.
I don't know how that could possibly be related to anything we're talking about today.
How? Yes,
I don't know.
So it was very nice to have that. So a lot of Onimusha, and then a lot of the indie, like I'm always checking out the newer indie pixel art games. So Narita Boy, I've been playing around with and dabbling. That came out pretty recently. Crosscode is this like SNES top-down RPG.
How is that?
It's really good.
Is it? I have it on my wish list and I keep meaning to buy it.
The hype is real.
It's on Game Pass too.
I think it is on Games Pass. Yeah. I'm only like a few hours into it, so I guess I shouldn't say the hype is real. So far, it's hitting all the right buttons for me.
Nice. Okay.
Good shit, man. Good shit.
Well, then I suppose that just leaves you, Chris. So, like, what have you been up to? What have you been playing?
Fuck, too many games. I don't think I'd ever say that.
So that's a tough problem to have.
I know, right?
How do I hold all these games?
It's just like a lot of the stuff that we're working on the side that I don't, again, I think I said this in the previous episode, I don't quite want to talk about yet. I'm waiting until we're at the end of recording the entire thingamabob in order to announce it. But I've had to play a lot of games in order to be coordinated with it. So I don't want to talk about those games quite yet. However, I will talk about games that I have been playing outside of that. And I just actually, before I started recording, was playing a game called Cotton for the PC Engine CD or the TurboGrafx 16 CD. And that is a fun little shooter, man. That is, it's a fantastic little game. The soundtrack's really good. I actually have a repro for all intents and purposes because if you want to get the original game, it's going to cost way too much money. So I actually went to this one website. It was called, not sponsored, Dark City Productions, where they take a soundtrack, they remix it, and they put it to the original game.
Oh,
and they remaster how the like sounds are coming out of the game and everything, and it's really nice. I played a little bit of that, and yeah, I really enjoy it. And again, like, no coordination here. They don't know I'm saying this, of course, but Shmup Junkie on YouTube was the one who pointed me to it. So if you love shmups, go check them out. Great channel, man. I don't think I would have gotten the game without that recommendation. So if you love shmups, go there. You can get turned on to some good shmups ideas, or just celebrate the shit you love. So I'll plug Cotton. Cotton's a great game. Go play Cotton.
All right.
Any way you can.
it looks pretty cool. It's like Kiki's Delivery Service, but the shoot 'em up. That's what you look like Kiki on a little broom. It's cool.
The crossover event of the season.
Yeah, you're a witch, and the entire objective is so the witch can go eat candy. So the beginning of the game, there's this fairy that's like, oh my God, our kingdom has been taken over by bad people. Look at
her butt, Becky.
Yeah. I mean, you could, because she's very scantily clad.
It is so big.
But she flies in and she meets the witch Cotton. And it's like, oh, my kingdom's all fucked up. And Cotton just walks past her. And because all that Cotton cares about is candy. And then the fairy says, well, if you save her kingdom, you get the biggest candy in the world. And then all of a sudden she decides to help the fairy. And that's the entire plot. Every single time you beat a boss, you get a new candy. And Cotton just yells at the fairy and says, let me eat this thing. And the fairy says, no, if you get all of them, you get the big candy. It's a fucking weird game, but I love it. It's adorable. And it's not too difficult either. So if you're just getting into shmups, this could be a good game to get into. Just play it emulated, because if you don't, you're going to be paying a lot of money. And I don't want that for anybody. Go find an ISO. I didn't say that.
But Chris, what if the biggest candy was the friends that you made along the way?
I wouldn't eat that.
The pause speaks volumes, but okay.
It's an interesting like artistic style, because it's all, you're right, the fairy chick, I'm watching the intro, super classic anime, just sexualized, whatever. We're all used to it. And it's all kitty, but then the enemies are more like altered beast, like mythological.
Yeah, super dark.
Yeah, it's this weird clash of like anime and then not anime, dark and horror. It's pretty cool.
It's like Kiki's Delivery Service meets Vampire Hunter D.
That's an elevator pitch for a movie. I'm ready. Sign me up.
There we go.
So wait a second.
You know what else we can sign you up for? Oh, what? Go ahead, Shane.
No, I was just going to ask, what did you say you were playing this on?
The PC Engine CD.
Okay. I was just doing some poking around, and I don't know if this ever came to fruition, but evidently there was supposed to be a remake of that game.
There is a remake of that game. Yeah.
Okay.
It just came out.
It's like for PS4.
It's actually a remake of the PS4 and Switch. It's actually a Sharp X68000 remake. It's not the PC Engine remake.
Wow.
Oh, this looks cool too. Dang.
Huh.
It's much more much more like anime overall. colors.
We just went way deep.
We did.
So now you have had some gaming lessons about some super obscure consoles.
There you go.
Sharp's X68000. What the fuck?
I know.
Again,
I was like, of all the things to choose, that's what they went with.
It's the best port, apparently. I think it's an arcade game originally. I'm not sure.
Oh, well,
I have to go watch Shmup Junkie's video again. Again, not in collaboration. I just love their channel. He's good. You know what else is good? Short RPGs.
True.
That's actually a terrible segue for the topic we're about to cover.
You know what? It's fun.
But given
just roll with it.
The dynamics. Yeah, we're just roll. Nothing, Cade. Okay, fine. You just sit there and
I feel like I was taking you guys off rails and I felt bad. So I wanted to shut up. But I can ruin this podcast if you want. I'm totally ready.
I'll make a mental note. Just invite me back on yours. It'll be a good time.
Okay.
There you go.
You guys are always invited on anytime you want.
All right.
Fantastic.
I'll remember that.
Yeah.
What else is fantastic is genre-defining games. And one of those genre-defining games is Dragon Quest.
Oh.
Which is today's topic, and we will be talking about. And to give you a brief history of Dragon Quest, Shane, take it away.
The word definitive tends to get thrown around a bit too often these days, especially when in reference to video games. Whether this moniker is used to describe an attachment to a certain genre or a particular console, the meaning often gets lost as this title is seemingly awarded to any game that achieves even a modest amount of success. Far and few between are the titles that truly live up to such a superlative. And no game fits the description of definitive for JRPGs better than Dragon Quest. In 1985, Yuji Horii, working on a Famicom port of his obscure game entitled The Portopia Serial Murder Case, began playing the PC RPG Wizardry. He and co-worker Koichi Nakamura were so enamored by the game that they borrowed many of its dungeon-crawling elements and implemented them into Portopia. Mere inspiration, however, would prove insufficient. Horii wanted to make his very own wizardry, a version that would be more accessible to a broader audience outside of the hardcore RPG crowd. With the release of Super Mario Bros. Establishing the existence of a more casual gaming audience, Horii knew that the myriad statistics and sprawling labyrinthine dungeons of old would need to go if he hoped to capture their attention. Horii would ultimately turn to Ultima as his primary inspiration, which can most readily be seen in Dragon Quest's choice of an overhead perspective. Wizardry's influence, on the other hand, can be seen in the shift to a first-person perspective for battle sequences. The relatively simple menu system can be largely attributed to his aforementioned project Portopia, and perhaps the most important decision Horii made was less about what was included and more about what wasn't. Specifically, any trace of the Dungeons & Dragons rule set, which served as the underpinning for a number of other RPGs at the time. Other smaller, less noticeable features like quick level ups and choosing to have the final dungeon be visible from the very beginning of the game were included to both encourage the player and provide them with a clear objective. Enix threw their full support behind Horii's project, hiring popular Dragon Ball manga artist Akira Toriyama, a move that may have been aided by Horii's concurrent employment as a Shonen Jump writer at the time, and well-known television composer Koichi Sugiyama. On May 27, 1986, Dragon Quest would be released to the Japanese masses for the Famicom and MSX. Initially, sales figures indicated that the game was going to be a massive flop. This disaster scenario was largely sidestepped by Hori leveraging his position at Shonen Jump to pen articles hyping the game, resulting in a noticeable spike in consumer interest. Within 6 months, Dragon Quest would sell 1 million copies in Japan, eventually going on to top 2 million in total. The game also performed well critically, with Famitsu awarding it their coveted Game of the Year title. All told, the future was looking bright for the burgeoning Dragon Quest franchise. In 1988, Nintendo of America took notice of the massive success Dragon Quest was enjoying in Japan and decided the time was right to test the North American market's appetite for a new RPG. This localization, however, would not come without a complete overhaul of the game. The graphics were completely redone and improved. A battery backup was included to provide a save feature in place of the Famicom's password system. All of Toriyama's original artwork was, perhaps regrettably, removed in favor of more traditional Western high fantasy art. Anything funny, whimsical, or controversial was altered to present a more serious high fantasy experience. And finally, the name itself would be changed to Dragon Warrior to avoid a lawsuit from a pen and paper RPG that shared a name with the Japanese original. In August of 1989, Nintendo, under coordination and direction of Satoru Iwata and Yuji Horii, would release the game to North American audiences. Nintendo promoted the title aggressively, running numerous articles about it in their Nintendo Power magazine. Unlike Horii's similar tactic only a few years prior, Nintendo's editorial hype could not drum up the kind of sales figures they were hoping for. The reception was so poor, in fact, that Nintendo began giving out free copies of Dragon Warrior with every new subscription to Nintendo Power, a $50 value for only $20. While this deal did result in 500,000 new subscriptions for the magazine, it did very little to move the needle on future sales of the game cartridge. Though the series would continue to struggle in North America and the West in general, Dragon Quest flourished in its homeland of Japan, quickly becoming the definitive JRPG. In so doing, Dragon Quest set the gold standard and laid the foundation for popular series such as Final Fantasy and Phantasy Star, to name but a few. The series continues to this day in many forms, from its mainline entries to its multiple spin-offs, media, and merchandise. The contributions this unassuming little game made towards the industry are undeniable, and its influence will continue to be felt for years to come. And that is your brief history of Dragon Quest.
All right. Thank you very much, Shane. You know what? Like, you going through that.
Yes.
I am just entirely shocked. I didn't know this prior to doing research on this episode, that the game started out as a failure.
Yeah.
I mean, Cade might agree with that.
Yeah,
I was surprised.
There were so many times I wanted to jump in and just shit on this game during that. By the way, you guys, this brief history thing is my favorite part of your podcast. You have the voice. Both of you can do like the narrator voice, the cadence so perfectly. The word definitive tends to get thrown around a bit too often. Like, I can't even do it. You sound like you belong on like game trailers. It's fucking amazing. But
well,
I want to fact check this.
Sure.
Brief history a couple of times.
Okay.
If it's wrong, it's all Chris's fault.
Well, I'm not.
That is my fault.
Throw him under the bus right now.
I meant fact check more like a QAnon person tells you to do your research.
Oh, great.
This is all subjective on my opinion, which is king.
Oh,
okay. One thing I noticed is I read this before we started the podcast, and as you were going through it, I was thinking about it more. But like the simple menu system, he brought over his simple menu system from Portopia. You have to. I know we're gonna get into it, but it just made me realize like I have to give myself a little bit of like spoiler. I didn't like the game at all.
Wow, what?
I barely.
we couldn't figure this out.
But But I knew. I'm like, okay, this game is sort of legendary in the sense of I didn't look this up. I wanted to ask in real time. Did it come out before Final Fantasy in Japan or after?
Yes.
Okay,
It came out before.
So this has to be, I mean, other than some of the games that you mentioned in the brief history that they got inspiration from, but is this the first JRPG?
That we know of, that's accepted as a JRPG, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I that's what I thought. And it's just, I have to give it a little bit of credit. Like, okay, it's the first one of its time, but it's
A little bit of credit.
a little bit. But dude,
Just a little bit.
dude, America, you know what? America was like, fuck you. I don't care if you give it to us for free with the Nintendo Power. It sucks. Like, there's a
That's why it's called JRPG.
there's a
Cade.
reason why no one fucking likes it.
JRPG.
Look, I just thought it was hilarious. Like, I don't know what the difference between a Japanese market and at the time and an American market, because there were
Obviously.
listen,
Wow.
listen, you asshole, you
Clearly.
lovely asshole. There were contemporary games at the time that were similar that were more enjoyable. I remember
Like what?
I have to look at, like, what were the games on PC where you had to push the little arrows and go through the dungeon? I know there was ones.
You mean
You should
like
know.
Rogue?
like wizardry?
Rogue?
perhaps?
Wizardry. Let's look at
The one
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
wizardry.
in the brief history.
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
so why did
Yes.
Wizardry do good and Dragon Quest not do good in America?
They Wizardry didn't do that great. It was a really niche hardcore game.
Yeah.
Look, I should have looked some of these games up before I made this argument. I know.
Obviously. Yes.
I know.
Again.
If I was a walking Wikipedia, I could rattle off a handful of games that I was exposed to as a kid.
It's like, I just don't
remember-
understand why my grandma was playing Ultima. No one gave a shit about
Exactly.
Dragon Warrior.
You have shit like Ultima and Eye of the Beholder. I know all those games came out after, but there was games before that were selling. And so my question is
Kate.
why did Americans be like, hey, this game sucks, even if you give it to us? Why?
So why did more people buy Dragon Warrior than Ultima on the NES?
I don't know. Did they?
Yes.
Did you just look that up? Or did you know it off the top of your head?
I know that.
Okay, props to you.
All right. So personal experiences that we've had with this game. Cade, please tell us.
All right,
Please tell us how you grew up. Like, what's your past history with this that causes so much hate and vitriol?
because I rented this game because the cover art is metal as fuck. It's awesome.
Word.
It is.
The cover art is like I saw this at whatever. It probably wasn't Blockbuster. I think it was a local chain called Good Time Video. The cover art, and yes, they did have Good Time Videos behind the beads section.
One can only assume.
One can only assume. But they had Dragon Warrior. And I remember I had never seen anime at the time. It was like long before I saw anime, but just the artwork it had kind of like a fantasy novel book, like a book novel cover artwork.
Yeah.
But it was a game. And I'm like, shit, this is going to be dope. Like, this looks so good. Green dragon, big giant eyes, fire everywhere, Dragon Warrior. And then I get it. I can't get out of the fucking first room. I don't even know how to open the chests. I was probably like 5 or 6, maybe 7, if I'm lucky. And I did eventually get out of the first room, but I remember like the first time I rented it, getting so angry there was no context. And this again goes back to this is the first JRPG ever. There was no context of how these games work. I had no context. There was no internet. It was these menus, and I didn't understand, like, you had to get on the actual treasure chest to search it at first. Then you have to find like 3 keys just to open the door in the first room. And that took, like, you get 3 days when you rent a game. It took like night 1 was completely just used to get out of the first room. Probably because I'm stupid. But either way, like, I could play that or I could hop into Contra and it's like, oh, I know what to do. Monkey shoot bad guy. It's just that was so jarring that I never got that far into it. And then I tried it again a couple of times. I remember renting it multiple times just because the cover art looked so cool. I'm like, it's got to be cool. I got to figure this game out. And I probably hate it because it was one of the first failures of my life. Oh, I couldn't figure the game out. And maybe that's why I hate it. And coming back and replaying it, I remember being like, oh, yes, this sucked. Like, it was at the time, and maybe if I was older, but at the time you have all these different games to play. And at least in the West, you have your Marios, you have your Contras. Zelda was a little obtuse. I remember getting frustrated with the original Zelda. I never beat it, but I got much farther. a Darkwing Duck, Little Nemo, all these games I was playing, they're mainly action, Master Blaster, and then there was Dragon Warrior that looked the coolest, but if you weren't old enough or smart enough to figure it out, it wasn't fun. And it still isn't fun.
Well, I could see that. I could see how that would make sense, because if you were so used to playing a lot of like platformers or shooters or something like that, and you go into this having no clue what you're in for, that's a pretty jarring experience. I mean, in a way, it's almost the reason that I still completely dislike Majora's Mask, because I went into it expecting one thing and it was definitely not that. And then I never went back to it.
There are people out there that will crucify you live for saying that. I'm not one of them.
And I don't give a shit. I think Chris is now like the most recent convert to the cult of Majora, but whatever.
I am. Yes. So how about you, Shane, then? What's your personal experience with this game?
Wow.
As you shit on Majora's Mask. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Man, I ain't got one. No, I mean, in all honesty, okay, it was hard not to see this game around. I mean, as we mentioned, they were basically handing them out like flyers at one point. So it's kind of like, I saw it at the rental store that I went to. Eventually a little bit later in life, I saw it in many a bargain bin or a yard sale or whatever, mixed in with a bunch of other NES cartridges. And for the record, I agree with Cade that the artwork is badass, even though I suppose it's arguable whether or not having the original artwork kind of get ripped out was maybe a bad thing, but at least what they replaced it with was pretty cool.
Better than Mega Man.
Yeah, God, that's a low bar, but yeah. And so I always saw it around, but I never owned it. I never even played it at that time. I didn't pick this game up until about 2 weeks ago, when we were kind of getting ready to do this episode. And so that was my first experience with it. And I decided to go with the version that was available on my Switch, mostly just because, well, A, I really like my Switch, and B, it made it easy to play Dragon Warrior on my big TV. So that's what I went with. And I have some qualms about that version, but for the most part, the experience was pretty enjoyable. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me, man. I don't know, Chris, you might have more of an experience with this one, back in the day than maybe we were.
I mean, I didn't own this until I think after well into my teens. I don't want to say that. I will say that. I think it was into my teens, like 14, 15 years old. Mm-hmm. So when I started getting into the Dragon Quest series, but it was a game that, yeah, you go over to someone's house, everyone had fucking Dragon Warrior, because it did come free with a Nintendo Power subscription. And who wasn't going to turn down a free video game for a magazine subscription? That's insane. Because when you think about it, a $50 game is how much in today's money in 1989? That's like over $100 easily.
Yeah.
So you're getting essentially in today's money, you're getting $100 game for free for your $40 magazine subscription. Of course you're going to fucking get it.
Well, and not to mention that, I mean, you talk about magazine subscriptions now, and a lot of people are just like, who the fuck wants that? But I mean,
yeah, when there's no internet.
And also at the time, it was fucking Nintendo Power in the era of NES. Like, that shit was gold to kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cade's right. And you and Cade made a really good point in terms of just how people interpreted this. I didn't get attached to this game when I first played it way back in the day. And I don't really expect anyone to get attached to the NES version. It's very obscure. It demands a lot through menu navigation. Things that were really optimized with Final Fantasy. And even Final Fantasy has a lot of those anachronisms that Dragon Quest has that wouldn't be fixed until the Super Nintendo for most RPG players with Final Fantasy 2. So when you play these games from the NES era, even Phantasy Star has a lot of those, hey, I got to open the menu to talk to people, or hey, I got to open the menu to do some things that a simple button press would suffice, right? It's just there. And I can understand why a lot of people, hey, if you play Contra and then you go play Dragon Warrior, you're going to put Dragon Warrior down pretty quick.
Yeah.
And you're going to be frustrated with it. You're not going to like a lot of the things that Dragon Warrior is doing. And that was kind of what I felt about it for the longest time. Even though I had Dragon Warrior 1 and 2, and I'm not going to talk about 2 today, and it does suck. But Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 were 2 games that I didn't really touch as much as I did with Dragon Warrior 3, or at the time Dragon Warrior 7, which I love and a lot of people hate. I get it. But yeah, Dragon Warrior is one that a lot of people passed up at the time, and I completely get it. I mean, I did. And we didn't get the Super Nintendo version, which is the version I played in preparation for this game, which is way better. It is so much better. And that's essentially the version that if you played on your Switch, that's the same version that you had. It is such a much better game. So I understand, Cade, you jumped on that grenade for us and you played the NES version in preparation for this episode. I understand why you're yelling at everybody and you're confused as to why Ultima sold more copies.
It didn't. By the way, while you were talking, I looked that shit up. Yeah, Ultima sold more than Dragon Warrior.
How many copies did
Dragon Warrior?
How many copies did Ultima sell?
In North America, sold 500,000, and Ultima sold 750.
On the NES?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
No, I'm just making that up. I could only find the Dragon Warrior 1 North America sales, which is 500,000 copies. So out of the 1.5
That's
million,
just through Nintendo Power. There's more than 500K. Anyway,
that's all I could find. Sales history. I'm trying to prove you wrong, but I can't, and I'm frustrated.
You're not going to. No one bought.
But I still don't understand how you could claim with so much confidence it sold more than Ultima when you can't find any of this online. How do you know?
Have you ever seen Ultima in a fucking store? No.
That's because they didn't give away 500,000 with magazine subscriptions.
He does make a good point.
Yeah, giveaway, sold, same thing. Either way,
okay.
Cade is really good at telling false stories. So while we're on stories,
it's a spicy
Shane, how
segue.
about you talk to us about the plot and writing of this game?
Yeah. So honestly, most of this is I think this game defined some tropes in a lot of ways. Either that or it just relied incredibly heavily on a lot of stuff that was from literature in the first place, right? Like you have you are the descendant of a hero of legend, and you are immediately tasked with saving the world from a definitely not morally ambiguous, bad guy. He's straight up just evil because evil. Also, there's a princess that's in danger. I mean, you can't really go too far outside of that. But again, you have to kind of remember, right, that this was one of the very first. And so I guess you have to give it a little bit of slack there. For the record, I will say that I pretty sure that I laughed literally out loud when I first saw the text that they chose to use, because the Shakespearean English that is in this game is just it's a thing of beauty. It is extra as fuck, and I am all about it.
Thou'th hath gained a leveleth. It's not that bad, but it's close.
Yeah,
it's fucking close. I mean, yeah, I would say a lot of the same things about the plot. Before I get into it, how about you, Cade? What do you think about the cheesy ass writing and just the plot in general?
Basically the same ideas. In my mind, I referenced it as like King James Bible speak, because that's what I grew up with reading. So that's I didn't read Shakespeare, but I read the Bible. And it reminded me just of the Bible and some other stuff I read growing up. Like, thou hast done a good deed. What hast thou done? Thou hast gained a level, sir. I liked it. Again, that was probably one of the things that I liked in the beginning. The setup, again, even though I have a hard time giving the game a pass for being the first of its kind when it comes to basically the menu and all the gameplay, for some reason, the story didn't bother me. Like, okay, yeah, typical, I'm the chosen hero, save the princess from the bad guy. Maybe because we still use that trope all the time in games and everyone's fine with it. But the other quality of life improvements of how the game functions, we've refined, and we don't find that in modern games. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why I could give the plot a pass, but I couldn't give everything else a pass. But it didn't bother me. It was like, okay, cool. I'm saving the world from the bad guy, and it's a JRPG, and they're talking like the Bible. I'm in.
I gotta give this game a pass. I mean, if the entire idea was to make an entirely boilerplate experience for the masses, this is the most boilerplate experience you could give people.
True.
Hey, the princess is in trouble. There's a bad man you have to kill. Yeah, you're trying to attract the most simple of folk. This is the Wii Sports of JRPGs. What are you expecting? It's supposed to be this way. And I love the fact you don't even have to save the princess. You have a damsel in distress. You can be like, fuck that bitch. She can figure it out.
What happens if you don't save her? You used to get the same ending?
No, she's just not there at the ending. You get the same ending. She's just not there.
Yeah, I mean, I think functionally,
functionally,
the only difference is you just don't get her. Well, the name changes depending on which version of the game you play, but the item that kind of gives you the hints about like the coordinates you need to go to
she doesn't give you her GPS system.
Yeah, basically. She doesn't give you her fucking TomTom or whatever. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Although I'm interested, and it's such a short game, maybe someday I might just fucking do it just for the hell of it. But I saw that apparently it is possible to also beat the game while still carrying her.
Oh, I could. Yeah, absolutely. Why? You don't save.
Yeah, well, just when you pick her up from the dungeon, just never bring her back to the castle and just finish the rest of the game, and you can defeat the Shadow Lord or whatever his name is with her still in your arms, which I think is pretty hilarious.
That is awesome. Because I mean, no, the only way you get her out of your arms is talking to the king.
Right.
So you just don't. You could bring her back to the castle, parade her around like a trophy, and then just never talk to the king. And still beat the game. Like, hey, look, I got your princess. We're going to go kill the Demon King or Dragon King, whatever the fuck he is. Yeah. And just be like, yeah, your dad can wait. Just, you're coming with me. I'm putting you in peril. I love it. I love that. I also love the fact the NPCs in this game don't suck. They, for the most part, right? They tell you where you need to go.
That actually,
in no uncertain terms.
Because the game is so hard. Like, I only played like an hour, close to an hour and a half before I resorted to watching a playthrough. And I have no idea where to go. So one part I could say it reminded me a little bit of like Dark Souls or those type of games where they don't just tell you what to do. You have to read items, talk to people, and then from the context, figure out what to do. So that, I guess if that wasn't combined with everything else being so tedious, but that's a fair point because they don't tell you what to do. You just have to start talking to people and they drop hints. Northeast is that. Like one guy had something about there's a place where you can buy magic keys and then you have to end up buying a bunch of magic keys to open doors. He told me about that. That's a fair point.
Yeah. Yeah, they let you know what you need to do.
Right. But the important bit about that, though, is that they are not completely fucking obtuse about it, because some other games, especially in this era, were like that, where, you know, they were like, yeah, we're telling you what you should do next, but it's also cryptic as fuck and we have no idea what you're telling me.
Yeah, like kneeling to turn into a tornado.
Yeah, that seems real straightforward. Thanks, Castlevania.
So I do appreciate that. The writing is what the writing is. I didn't get that because I played a fan translation for the SNES in preparation, but I do remember that cheesy ass text, and it's so great. You can't. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, and they updated a lot of the text for like the Switch/mobile port, but they maintained the KG or KJ rather translation /Shakespearean, just in a slightly different flavor. So I appreciated that. And one more thing that I wanted to point out real quick about sort of like the plot and everything is, I know that there are probably a lot of folks that might look at it, especially kind of going back to it now and just thinking like, oh, this is pointless. Like there's nothing to this. There's nothing there. Like why, you know, it's the most bare bones of stories, and they're not necessarily wrong, but this is a common thread through a lot of what we're going to be talking about from the other aspects of this game, that in a way I actually kind of appreciate it because it is so straightforward. you in a way, this is one of those games you can sit down and immediately understand kind of what's going on and what you need to do. And the fact that they placed the castle that you're supposed to get to by the end of the game literally across a fucking river from where you start is actually pretty ingenious in my mind, because even me going back and playing this for the first time now, when you first step out and you see that dark fucking foreboding castle just across the river, you're just like, oh shit, all right, well, I know where I'm gonna end up. And so it's a cool touch. I appreciated it.
So in terms of touching you wrongly,
wow,
I think Cade needs to
red light,
get the gameplay off his chest.
Well, I guess while we're at it, we can talk about some of the Catholic priests that I grew up with too. Damn, just kidding. I grew up Mormon, not Catholic.
You
Same
didn't,
shit.
yeah, you did. I already know that. It's the same. Okay,
basically the same shit.
New scandal.
Yeah, same
New
shit,
scandal.
different pile.
Yay!
All right, we obviously my notes. I'm looking at my notes, and I just have a big capital menu the fucking game, because it's just like, again. Now that I've gotten all my ranting off and want to be more mature about it, I guess while I was playing it until I thought about it, and then now we've been talking about it, and I didn't fully understand that it was the OG, the original JRPG, and how much we take for granted lots of little things like contextual action buttons. Mm-hmm. Because in this game, at least the NES version, I don't know about the Super Nintendo version, you have to open a menu and then you have all these different options for like every individual thing that a normal JRPG, you just press the action button in front of a door or a chest or an NPC, and you'll either talk, open the door, or go up and down the stairs, open the chest, etc. In this game, on the NES version, you have to like individually choose. I want to talk to this person. I want to go to the stairs. I want to go to the search or open. And there's a bunch more of them. And all of them are like 2 to 3 sub menus away. And that just means like every step in what is already, I think most people would consider a slow moving, tedious genre. This is something Chris said earlier when we were texting back and forth, that tedium is part of the experience of a JRPG. And my counter argument would be, well, then why, when they do these re-releases, they add in all these things like skipping random encounters, speeding things up, quick saves, quality of life improvements, because people don't want to do that tedious stuff. And I didn't realize it was even more tedious because no one had thought of like, why don't we just make an action button that's contextual for everything you have to interact with? That hadn't been thought of yet. And so just that one concept, because that hadn't been thought about yet, makes this game like so sloggy. And what's even worse is the fucking NPCs, like they all move, like most of them, the ones that move, while you open them, if you're not like right next to them and facing them, while you open the menu to click talk, they will move. So sometimes you're just like, I can't even fucking talk to this guy because every time I open the menu, he fucking moves and you're already pissed off. And it's just like, oh my God, this is torture. Like I can't, and then I don't even know where to start. Like just that one thing, the menu system. Now in the battles, it's not as bad because it's more like a traditional, I've played things like Eye of the Beholder growing up. Like, okay, I hit, does the text, it goes back and forth. Maybe I was missing, like the character sprites have no animation and the attacks just have like one effect, and then like the sprite will like wiggle and change colors. Mm-hmm. And like that's a little,
I think it's
that's
Flash.
A little, yeah, a Flash. It's like a little bare bones, but that didn't bother me as much as really when I think about it, it's just the menu system. It just makes every step of the game like 2 to 3 times slower in a genre that's already coming back from a modern perspective, can be a slog depending on your I guess your mood and your personality. Sometimes I like it. Like I've been playing Suikoden this week as well on emulator, but I use the speed up function and the quick save function a lot. And like it just cuts out, and I've been really, really enjoying it. And even I thought with the NES version of Dragon Warrior, I'd be like, okay, I'll play it on emulator. I know it's going to be bad, but I'll have quick saves and I'll have the speed function, and so I can grind quick if I need to. And then I realized you have to go back to the king to save, which is another thing that's just like, who?
That does suck.
Yeah, who thought? I mean, I guess I didn't. All comes to context. I didn't know it was like the original JRPG. I thought there was more predecessors to it. So now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, okay, I should give it a little bit more of a pass. But it's like, if you're thinking about going and playing it, I agree with you guys. Definitely don't play the Famicom version, because I looked that up to see it after you told me about it. And I would say don't play the NES version because I'm assuming the Super NES version or the mobile remake has fixed the menu issue to some extent, right?
Yeah, well, actually, that's a good place for me to jump in then, I guess. So you actually make an excellent point here, and I think that maybe this one thing, I mean, I'm sure there might be a couple others, but I think this is the major sticking point that is what makes or breaks the experience and is what is the huge difference between how you feel about this game and how I think I do, and I believe Chris does. Mm-hmm. And that is the difference in the menu system. And I think it's funny now because you pointed that out in the brief history. You're like, simple menu. But it is valid because the original NES, it does have that where you do have to go through like a sub menu to get to a command to just like walk down some stairs. Whereas the re-releases got rid of all of that. It's all context, like just like you would expect. Stairs, you just walk onto the tile and you transition just like you think it should. So that extra layer of tedium is completely gone, and that completely changes the experience.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's just that. It's just if the menus were fixed, I probably would have liked the game.
Yes, I mean, if you go back and you play this game on the Super Nintendo, which again was the version I played, a lot of those action buttons are mapped to the L and R button. For most of the game, you could actually play with just one hand, with the D-pad and the L button, especially when you're grinding. It makes everything a lot easier. If you're opening doors, talking to people, you can do it with the L or R button. Of course, you press the A button, it's going to bring up your menu. But you're absolutely right. You play the NES version, the gameplay in this game is archaic by modern standards. No one is going to go back and look at this game, be like, oh, this is so great. No, they're not going to like it because there was no standard. You have to remember, this is an evolution or an interpretation of PC RPGs, which were overly complicated, especially in the early to mid 80s. Like, they're far more complicated than what you were getting in Dragon Quest. So Dragon Quest did simplify what was happening on the PC scene by quite a bit. Now, yeah, you look at it with modern eyes and you're like, how the fuck, what the fuck are you talking about? Because I have to go through all these menus. And in the Famicom version, not only did you have to open up menus, but because your character sprite couldn't face different directions, you had to annotate through menus which direction you were facing before you performed an action through your menus in order to do what you wanted to do. It's nuts. But there was nothing prior to it. This was the standard. This was the beginning for what every RPG after it, JRPG after it, emulated itself off of. So yeah, there were a lot of things here that we don't do anymore, and for good reason. But that's because someone had to do something first, and the only thing they had to build off of was Wizardry and Ultima, which were stupid complex. So in terms of gameplay, yeah, this is a breath of fresh air compared to what else you would get in 1985, 1986. And the fact you don't have to worry about all the shit you have to worry about in Ultima and Wizardry or in D&D is great. And you see that when they refine it in later versions, when it's more focused on just your character and just grinding, and it's an extremely casual experience, and you can see what Yuji Horii was trying to do. It's just he didn't have his own piece for reference while making it.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And what you made a point about there just a moment ago about it kind of feeling a bit like a breath of fresh air, I 100% agree with that. Because from my perspective, when I was going into this, honestly, the only preconceived notion I had was I assumed it was going to be like Final Fantasy. And part of the issue that I have going back to classic RPGs a lot of the time is that they just tend to be so just impenetrable with, archaic systems and obtuse mechanics, agonizing over which spell or piece of equipment to buy, or am I building the party the right way, or whatever, and this is none of that. This is buy bigger sword, hero go burr. That's literally the whole game. And I'm okay with that. Like I genuinely was relieved to find out that this game and the gameplay that it presents was that straightforward, because I could just sit down and enjoy it. Now, with that comes a huge fucking boulder of salt, in that if I had played the NES version as Cade did, I guarantee my opinion would be very different. I would probably actually be siding with Cade on this for the most part.
In the Super Nintendo version, you said, for you it was simple, like buy bigger sword, hero go burr. Do they have like some sort of thing that lets you know the sword is better? Because that's actually the flip side for me.
Yes.
Okay. Because on the NES version, I got to the first shop and it's like, what do you want to buy? I go through 7 sub menus to get to buying. And then I look at the thing. I'm like, well, I don't know if there's a club, there's a sword, there's all these things. How do I know if this is making my attack power go up? How do I know if this is worth it? There's no way to know. You have to buy it and then go to your like character stat screen, and you have to manually remember what your stats were first, like take a mental screenshot. Then you have to buy the thing and then look at your stats again and see if anything changed, just to find out if it was worth it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and this isn't trying to provide justification for it. And I mean, it kind of is. It's kind of playing defense for it. Okay, yes, it is playing defense for it. But every other 8-bit RPG did the same shit. Final Fantasy did the same shit. Phantasy Star did the same shit. And that's because these games came with instruction booklets that told you the value of what all these weapons did.
True. I didn't think about that.
That's what I was going to say.
And they expected you to use those.
Yeah. But yeah, no, in the later versions, especially, I can't speak to the SNES one, but for the Switch and mobile port, yeah, the menus just straight up are just like, yeah, this is the attack value of your sword. This is the attack value of the one you're going to buy. It better. You should buy it. And that's it.
And you can equip it after buying it immediately.
Oh, yeah. That's nice. Yes.
Yeah, and they put in the custom text for the NPCs about that too, which I like. They're just like, doth thou wish to don thy new equipment? And you're like, fucking yeah. And they're like, of course thou wilt.
To be fair.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I was actually, now I think about it, I've been playing Suikoden, and when you buy stuff, you do have the attack menu. The UI tells you if something's better or worse, but it only tells you by highlighting the name, either red or green, of someone who can equip that item. But then once you buy it, they have to have space to equip it, and you can't equip it immediately. You have to leave the shop and then go to your menu. So again, to be devil's advocate against myself, to be fair, some of these problems were still not solved even in the PS1 era of JRPGs. You still had these clunky menu systems of equipping items and knowing what's better and how to set things up.
Oh, sure. Well, shit, even Diablo didn't have a comparison function like that at all. Like, you picked up a randomly generated piece of loot and you'd have to hover over each one to look at it and figure out if it was actually fucking better or not, because there was no way to compare the two. Like, so yeah, it's been a problem for a while.
Oh, yeah.
So another thing that I wanted to touch on before we move on to our next topic is I just brought up Diablo, and it's actually kind of a good segue into my other point, which is the simplicity of the combat that is presented in Dragon Quest is very much similar in my eyes, and it falls into the same sort of category as Diablo and other action RPGs do for me, in that it is the perfect game to play while doing something else, like watch a movie or listen to a podcast, for instance.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's exactly the thing that I want. There are times where I want, a very involving experience. I want to get into the weeds with things and know my character statistics and et cetera, et cetera. And then sometimes I just want a game that I can sort of enjoy and play and not have to think about too much. And shitty menu and contextual stuff aside, if you're playing one of the re-releases of it, at least, then I think this game is very much that. Now, having said that, I will point out that even the re-release is still super fucking grindy. And that's after they increased the XP and gold drops. There were still several occasions where it was very obvious the game was trying to tell me hey, you should step outside this town and just wander around in the trees for a little bit because you're not high enough level. And so that's what I did several times.
Then you find the gold man.
Oh, dude, the gold golem?
Yeah, gold golem.
Fuck yeah, dude. Give me that 650 Gs.
Fuck yeah. That just breaks the game wide open. Once you find that dude.
Yeah.
I can't remember specifically. I don't know. For some reason, I have in my head, after you defeat the gold golem, that if you hit search after you defeat it in the local area, you can find more gold. For some reason, I have this in my head. I don't know if that's true or not, or if that's just a Mandela effect, but it didn't happen in the SNES version. So I'm wondering where I got that from. I could be way off base. I'm not sure if that's this game or not, but yeah, in any case, the gold golem breaks the game once you get to it, because at that point grinding becomes almost irrelevant, because 650 gold in this game is,
I mean, granted, I'm sure that gold was probably a lesser amount in the original. I'm sure it's inflated in the re-release, but but still. And speaking of like enemies and stuff, I also do appreciate, again, this is in the same sort of line of thought as, you know, what we've been talking about before, in that this game is just very upfront and straightforward with things. I actually really do appreciate that there's an NPC at one point at the beginning of the game that, in a sort of pseudo in-universe explanation, basically tells you, hey dude, if you walk over a bridge, the next area you're going to be in probably will whoop your ass, just as an FYI. And so it's like this very, very distinct sort of like borders that you can start to draw around the map of like, okay, this is the area that I should be in right now, and I'm going to grind in here. And then when I feel like that's easy, I'll walk over that bridge and see what I find. So I actually appreciated that. Now, on the flip side, also, this game at times can have zero fucking chill and just throw like a jacked up green dragon in the middle of like a somewhat early level dungeon that will just fuck your shit up if you weren't expecting it. Of course, that's spoilers. That's where the princess is at, but it's located in an area where you get to way earlier than you should be fighting that dragon. And I will be the first to admit, I got my ass handed to me once by that guy.
Yeah.
In the dungeons, in the Super Nintendo version or the Switch version, do you have like the torch mechanic where you can only see one tile ahead of you in each direction?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Although once you get the glow spell, I never carried a torch again. But yeah, same mechanic.
I agree with everything you said. The difference between continents or bridges. Speaking of obtuse, there's a part in the game where you have to like use an item at this like little gap to make a bridge appear, like a rainbow.
Yes.
Two items. Yeah.
Yes. The rainbow drop.
The rainbow drop. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I gave up before that, but I was watching the playthrough and I remember thinking I would have never figured that out.
Dude, it took me forever to find that spot because they don't tell you exactly where to go.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious.
Oh, well, thanks, Chris. It's real fucking obvious.
Like you look at this as one tile separating two land structures. And you're like, oh, that's weird. That's where a bridge should be.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, some of us wandered around in the southwestern part of the continent for way too long trying to find a spot that would make sense and didn't find one.
That's your fault.
Yeah. Well, apparently it is.
I thought it was fine. I had no issues.
I was also disappointed that the rainbow bridge was not a rainbow at all.
It was not. Yeah. The NES version, there was no rainbow to that bridge.
Nope. Just a bridge.
Yeah. It's kind of bullshit.
It's Rainbow Road.
If only.
The other thing that I noticed, so I watched a couple playthroughs and I watched a speed run. And I don't know. I was like, okay, this guy beat the NES version in 20 minutes. And nice. And it was like no glitch, no like TAS, like it was on like an actual NES. Yeah. There was something that I didn't quite understand with like the way they inputted the name in the menu, but it made your luck higher.
Oh God. I found out about that after I finished the game. Yeah. I don't know if that carried over to the re-release though.
Maybe it didn't, but what it did is like, so that you'd have way less random encounters. And then it made this, I guess, sleep. I was talking to Chris about this earlier. The sleep spell, like the probability of putting an enemy to sleep must be tied to luck. Because he just put the final boss to sleep and then beat the shit out of him at like level 2 until the boss died. I was like, wow, okay. It was just interesting to see because it is actually fairly simple battle system compared to like lots of JRPGs that came down the road. It was interesting to see how like the the speed run didn't do a lot of crazy things. It was all like the whole speed run was just based off you could manipulate this luck stat. And because of that, the rest of the game, you just played normal. The other thing I noticed is they never got the torch. They would just memorize, assuming through sheer trial and error to get through places without the torch.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just put the final dragon to sleep. And then even though they were low level, they just hit it over and over again. Like probably 10 minutes of the 19 minutes was just killing the final dragon.
Yeah, it's an interesting mechanic because I had no idea about it, and like I said, I found out about it after I had finished the game. But evidently, the way that the game seeds your character's stat progress, because you don't choose your character's stats as you level up. You just level up, and it's just like thou hast gotten more swole, and that's it, and that's fine. But the values that it assigns to each one of your levels in those attributes is seeded based on the name that you choose at the beginning of the game. And so people have figured out that there's like an optimal name to choose depending on what kind of stats you want. And so, yeah, that's what Kate's talking about here, which is crazy.
I had no idea about that. That's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. But that is the thing. I like I said, I don't know if that's still carried over to like the re-releases or not, but it definitely was in the Famicom and the NES version for sure.
One very last thing, I'm going to be try to be brief because we're starting to run a little bit long here. Is that the difference in levels that you receive every single time you get a new level, the amount of power you get in between those levels is significant enough to make a difference.
Yeah.
And that's something you really didn't see a lot in more contemporary RPGs, really starting with the SNES. That's highly appreciative. And I think that is something they did really borrow from Dungeons and Dragons, even though they threw out everything in the rule set prior to that.
Yeah. And one quick question, and then we'll move on. Did anybody else find like the vast majority of the spells just completely fucking pointless?
Other than Hurt.
Yes.
Yeah. Hurt's the only good one that I saw that I used. Yeah.
Stop spell was good.
I literally only used the healing spells and like the occasional like glow for the, in lieu of a torch, which also for the record, I don't know if any of these were things that were like added in the re-releases. So you guys can keep me honest on that. But I'll say, but the Hurt spell, which got reconfigured to like sizzle, I guess, in the later versions, it's still like a fire spell. That one was useful for me, like up until after you start facing off against the first batch of like scorpions and stuff, when you realize that those guys are like resistant to melee attacks. The Hurt spell is like super effective against them. But shortly after that, like even that wasn't it, like it all seemed mostly pointless. Like it was just, I used it for healing and that was basically it.
By the end of the game, I was using Stop Spell or whatever it is, and the equivalent of Mutas in your versions. Because you would have enemies that would cast Heal More on themselves, or the secondary heal spell that would like replenish all of their hit points while they kept waylaying on you. So if you didn't cast Stop Spell on them, they would continue to heal themselves and then use spells on you, which would do more damage than their physical attacks in some cases. So that's another one I would use.
See, I felt like I powered through all of that. I'll be honest. Like even I saw them heal and I was just like, yeah, that's cool. And I just kept wailing on them.
I tried doing that at first, and then it just made the battles longer and my resource management went to shit. So I was like, I'll just Stop Spell is a 2 MP spell.
Right.
So I can just use that, and then I can just beat the shit out of them.
Right.
So, wow, gameplay.
I figured we were going to spend most of the time there, honestly. There's a lot to cover.
That's what most of the game is. Yeah, I mean, the game is mostly about gameplay. It's just about playing it, because the plot is just so generic. Most of the game is in its very simple and, unless you're Kate, addictive gameplay. But other than that, like, yeah, the graphics, I think we're going to have not a lot to say about it, but it depends on what version we're talking about. I'll start out with this one. The graphics, again, like I just kind of said, it depends what version you're playing. If you're playing the Famicom version, it looks like complete and utter mudbutt, is what I'm looking at. Shane put in his notes. Mudbutt is the most appropriate term. I'm stealing that because I'm just like, yeah, that's what it is. It looks like shit. It looks awful. The NES looks okay for the NES, for an RPG on the NES. And then you get the Super Nintendo and it looks really good. It looks like good sprite work. It's not perfect. It's not like Final Fantasy 4 or 5 levels, but it's decent. It's incredibly decent, and that's probably the best way to look at this game. Then you get the mobile version, and one thing I like about the mobile version / Switch version is that it's high res, but it's not cheesy high res like what you get with Final Fantasy 5. Well, okay, you'll be able to speak on that better than I would. I'm only can go by screenshots. It doesn't look as cheesy as those other games do.
It doesn't.
I'm not saying that's the preferred way to play it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't look as bad as those.
And you're right, it doesn't. And the reason for that is because for some unknown reason, they decided to keep the pixel art backgrounds and environments for the game. But they decided to completely overhaul all of the character sprites and change them from, you know, the sprites to like these really gross ass like RPG maker looking bullshit characters that do not fit at all, by the way, with the pixel art backgrounds, and they're way too big, and they just look so. It actually makes the game look cheap. Like if you didn't know
it does,
that this was Dragon Quest, like the Dragon Quest, you would assume this was like a shitty mobile phone game. And
it is.
Well, right, exactly. That's my point. Like, and that's a shame because I think that in terms of graphics, I think the SNES version, and I think there were a couple of handheld versions of the game too, and I think those are fine. I would go with that because I regret playing it on the Switch for that reason, actually, because those character models or sprites, I guess, are just the worst. And then on top of that, I don't know how this happened, but the scrolling of the backgrounds when you're walking around in the Switch / mobile port stutter constantly. And it is horrendous. There were points where I had to kind of take a break from playing it because the stuttering was so bad on the background scroll that like I was starting to get a headache.
Huh.
That's terrible. Cade, what'd you think?
The NES version, one of the things I didn't mind was just, I mean, it's like an NES game. There's a certain amount of nostalgia that comes from like old colors, and maybe the sound comes into that too. I didn't mind it. It definitely wasn't like a standout NES title that I would say like, oh, if you want to look at cool NES graphics, check out Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior. It's just like 50-50 ho-hum. It didn't bother me. The only thing that bothered me is I grew up really looking forward weirdly to title screens. Like I always thought the title screens, like the opening moment, like set the tone. And I would like be riding back from Blockbuster wondering how dope is this title screen going to be? And so I was back into that mindset a little bit. And the Dragon Warrior title screen is one of the most bland. Just plain,
sucks.
It sucks.
Yeah.
But the actual colors, I played it on emulator, and I like if you play on a good emulator that you can upscale to 4K at a pixel perfect ratio, so it keeps the exact same pixel look. It's just bigger and sharper.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no like weird filtering and stuff. And that's how I prefer to play old games. And I thought it looked. The only thing I would say is maybe a lot of the towns, that red brick tile set on the NES version it's like I got
that hasn't held up.
That hasn't held up. Yeah, I got I got like
not held
fatigue maybe from that. That'd be the only negative thing I could say.
Yeah. Plus, I think, and maybe Chris could keep me honest on this one, but I think the Japanese title screen, like the actual Dragon Quest title screen, was like 10 times cooler.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
That up.
Like a lot better. Because it says Dragon Quest and then you have a dragon popping out of the title, and it's breathing fire that says it in katakana. So I think it looks a lot better personally. So maybe that is what floats your boat.
Yeah.
Something that I see in the notes that everyone's kind of brought up but hasn't really talked about is how good the enemy sprites were.
Oh yeah,
they were good.
And that even goes back to the NES. The enemy sprites, Akira Toriyama's artwork being held up in that design form for the enemy sprites is fantastic. It is iconic Toriyama. And even if you don't know who Toriyama is or what his art is or what his legacy is, it's good shit. Like, yeah, it's not animated and wouldn't be animated, I think, until Dragon Quest 7/Warrior 7. But it's fucking good. Like, even then, it's always been really good looking. I think it looks better than Final Fantasies, to be honest.
Oh, I agree. No, I 100% agree with that, actually. They're much more iconic to me. Like that, and I think that's the thing is, like, I recognized like the slimes from Dragon Quest before I even knew that that's what, that they were from this. Mm-hmm. Like I that's how iconic some of these things are. And the artwork is very well done. Again, playing the Switch version, it's kind of a toss up because the enemies aren't really, they're almost like clip art versions of themselves in a way. And
that's bad.
Yeah, it's not great. It's like somebody took a JPEG of a slime from like the Dragon Quest website and stuck it in the game, and that's what you're fighting, and kind of sucks. I guess what I'm saying is they should have not just fucked around with the sprite work, just leave it alone. But yeah, even then, like they're still pretty great. The designs are good.
Mm-hmm. Have anything to add about the sprites there, Kid?
Yeah, I put in the notes, like, if I had been able to make it through the obtuseness of the menu system and like even just figure out the genre as a kid, because I had no like context of how these games were supposed to be played. Playing it now and watching the whole game played through, I would have been seriously motivated to just make it to a new area to see what the new enemies were, to see the sprites, because I was like that all the way up. Even when I've heard this brought up on multiple podcasts. It's like when you play PS1 RPGs back in the day, a lot of the time, say it's Final Fantasy VII, the one that everyone talks about, a lot of your motivation was to get to the new CGI cutscene.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think that same dynamic would have played out, because that's, as far as graphically, it's the enemy sprites. That's the best part of the visuals of that game. And I do like the ending boss is pretty cool. On the NES version, the dragon sprite is pretty cool, and like the sorcerer who turns into the dragon, I actually liked that sprite more than the final boss. Like this cool old guy with long, like typical sorcerer, but I just liked that aesthetic. I thought they were good. Like it's almost a shame. Like I'm almost feeling bad for talking so much shit. Again, it kind of blew my mind when I was like, I didn't really understand it was the first JRPG. I was just like, this is bullshit. I hate it, but.
I love how that switch just hit you after you got slayed over Ultima.
Yeah, well, I'm highly skeptical that Ultima sold less than Dragon Warrior in the United States. And believe me, I will poke around more. I will get to the bottom of this. But that being said, yeah, like the sprites are good. And for that, I don't know about the Final Fantasy thing, because I'm like conjuring up in my head, I think Leech is like the four-armed boss in Final Fantasy with the swords. Garland, like the sprite for Garland was pretty dope. I don't know if I would say it's better than Final Fantasy on the NES, but I say it's in the same realm.
That's fair. It's fair.
Yeah. I would say it's in the same realm of music and sound too, even if it's not your choice. I'll get my opinion on that. How about you tell us yours first there, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really have a whole lot to say. I mean, I think it's very well done. My opinion is going to obviously differ again because of the version that I played, because they redid the whole soundtrack. So it's, like actual instruments and whatnot. So yeah. I think maybe I might be a little spoiled in that regard, but the versions of the songs that I did hear, I very much appreciated. I don't think I ever really got tired of any of them. And in a game that can be as grindy as Dragon Quest, that is a very real concern. And I don't know. I enjoyed them throughout. I never really got fed up with any of them. It was kind of the same thing with Phantasy Star. Like I enjoyed the tunes in that game so much too that I didn't care that I heard the same ones over and over again.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I don't think it's as good as Final Fantasies. I don't think it's as good as Uematsu's, but I definitely think there's more of a place for it. It's just more of a cheery, more optimistic kind of vibe. A very happy soundtrack. It's lighthearted almost to a fault for my musical tastes, but that's what Dragon Quest is. It all started here. Again, the music and sounds here are iconic. they carry almost all of these sounds over into every other game, including spin-offs, to let you know it's Dragon Quest. So it's held up. It's still around. And even the sounds themselves, yeah, they've been remixed to include more modern instruments for the MIDI to sound better or the orchestra to sound better, depending on what you're listening to. But it's good. Even on the NES, it's good. And again, I prefer Final Fantasies over this, but like you said, it's music that's written to the point where it's not tiring. You can tolerate it for as long as you're playing it. It doesn't grate on your ears, and it becomes very suitable background noise. And it's just, I don't know, it's just like the game. It's relaxing and it's casual and doesn't really demand too much attention. And I think that's what you really want in a soundtrack. How about you, Cade?
I echo everything you say. I would say the only difference is I found myself get the opening, not the opening theme, but at least on the NES version, when you first start the game and you're talking to the king and he tells you you're the chosen hero, thou hast the ancient bloodlines, the music, the riff, the hook, that got stuck in my head because it reminded me of like kind of like an old school Bach composition, but then it would move like the resolution at the end of the phrase would kind of resolve, like you said, in a happy version where Bach tunes usually wouldn't. So I had like this mix, and I found myself like grilling steaks and shit with that going through my head. And I think a good sign of a good track is like if the hook gets stuck in your head, that's a good sign.
Yeah, the hook brings you back, baby.
Yeah.
All right, so look, we've talked a lot about this game. We've actually calmed Cade down, it sounds like.
You have soothed the beast.
You have soothed my soul.
I don't know. Maybe that makes for a less interesting pod. Maybe you want us to fight each other again in a war of words. I'm up for it at a later time. Not right now because we've been going too long. I had fun with that, though. So the real question is, does this game hold up today? And if it does, how do you play it? You know, what are you going to do? We'll start out with our guest, Cade. Does this game hold up today in your viewpoint?
If you're gonna play the NES game, fucking run. Don't waste your time. I think it all comes down to that archaic menu system. Now we've talked about it more, but it's just unless you're in the headspace and you really want to dive. Because in my mind, I was like, I want to dive into the OG. I understand that this is the start of a very iconic franchise, and I even went into it like knowing that it was going to be rough and wanting to get through it. And it broke me at like somewhere around an hour. But it sounds like the SNES version, and watching some of the gameplay footage while you guys have been talking about the Switch port and the SNES version, I think if you're going to play it, my guess is probably holds up if you're into JRPGs.
Nice. I'll go next here, and I would say, yeah, absolutely it holds up, but with the same caveats that Cade gave. Like, don't play the fucking Famicom or NES version of this game. Just don't do it. A lot of people will go back and be like, this is the original JRPG. This sucks. And yeah, you're not wrong, because we didn't have these games when this game came out. This was the establishment. This is what established the lineage of JRPGs. So it's going to suck. You're going to play this game and you're going to wonder, what the fuck am I doing with my time? And you should find something better to do with it if all you have is the NES version to play. That being said, the Super Nintendo version is a nice, simple romp you can complete in less than a day if you want to just play the whole entire day through. At the very worst, it's less than a weekend. And you get to see where all the fundamental origins of the JRPG came from. And it's really simple. It's relaxing. It's a casual experience. This is the Mystic Quest of PC RPGs, and that's not an insult. They really boiled it down to its essential elements and focused on the things that were fun about PC RPGs at the time. And I think they did a really good job, especially when you see that even further refined in its later iterations. So if you have a chance, go play the Super Nintendo version, go play the Switch version. You'll have a good time. And if you're asking my preference, play the Super Nintendo version emulated 100%, because like Shane said, the character sprites make it feel like a cheap mobile game. And if that doesn't bother you, go for it. But yeah, play the Super Nintendo version. It's good. And if you'll have an appreciation for where things came from. If you're listening to this, you have an appreciation for video game history anyway. So how about you, Shane?
Yeah, I think you're both pretty on point with what you've said. Does it hold up? Absolutely, but not the original version at all. I mean, like, you could play the NES if you really wanted to, but you're going to have an objectively better experience on literally any of the re-releases of this game. And if you can, look past the god awful sprite work that they put in for the characters in the Switch and mobile port of it, then I would recommend just doing that, because you can just grab it on your Switch and download it in like 5 seconds, because it's an old ass game, and it's like $5 or whatever. And also, I don't know, and Chris, you can tell me, because I'm not sure. I don't think it does, but the Switch and mobile port of the game also has a quick save built in, which is something I didn't mention before. Mm-hmm. That was also a huge bonus. It's kind of one of those temporary quick saves where it's like a suspended state kind of a thing, where like you can choose to quick save, but when you go back to the king and like hard save, it erases whatever that quick save was that you had. And every time you quick save, it'll obviously overwrite that quick save slot. But I made use of that quite a bit, and that also made the experience much more palatable, I suppose. But if you're not going to do it that way, or the RPG Maker sprites are going to throw you off, then yeah, probably just emulate the Super Nintendo version. And then that way you can just use save states kind of in the same function that you would with the quick save anyway. And you get the bonus of having all of the actually good graphics. So yeah, that would probably be my recommendation. But just one last thing about this. The reason that I think that it holds up is there are very few times where I can sit down with a game having no idea of what I'm getting myself into, and just almost immediately feeling like that. It's hard to put into words, but like just that feeling of like, I am enjoying this experience. Like, I am content with what I am doing right now. And I don't always get that, even with games I like, because there's so much to know and so much to keep track of, and tutorial texts to read and stats to know, and like character builds to consider. And like, it can actually be stressful. And I think a lot of people don't always admit that. And an experience like this, where you really don't have to worry about that stuff, you just jump in, you play, and you know what you need to do. There is a lot to be said for that.
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic point. And the fact you don't really need a walkthrough in order to beat this game.
True. It's like one of the only RPGs from this era where I didn't have to find a walkthrough to figure out what to do.
Yeah, you just got to talk to the NPCs, and eventually they will tell you what you need to do.
Right.
And that's something, like you said, you don't get in really any RPG. So there it is, everybody. That is Dragon Quest.
We did it.
It turns 35. That's why we're doing this episode. It's the 35th anniversary.
That's true.
For this
We didn't
game.
even mention that.
Yeah, not in North America, obviously, but just the game itself in Japan. The foundational JRPG. So happy 35th birthday to you, Dragon Quest. And thank you for all the games that came out after you. We will not play you in your original form, but you were invaluable. The original form can go fuck off now and head off into retirement. Speaking about how Dragon Quest, the original, can go fuck off into retirement, hey, Cade, how about you tell us about your podcast and how we can find you on the internet?
Type in Gaming Memories Podcast. I'll show up. I'm on all the big major podcast platforms. The format of my podcast is I interview people who have some sort of creative endeavor, musician, other podcasters, artists, developers, authors, and I just interview them, but through the lens of asking them about the games that impacted them growing up, starting with early childhood and moving on. And that's pretty much the gist. It's just a good way to talk to someone and get to know them, but using video games is like the common denominator to get to know somebody. You guys have been on it. You were episodes somewhere around like the 20s, I believe. Mm-hmm. Man, now that I'm thinking about it, I can't remember what your first consoles were, because that's how I always started out. Remind me. I think one of you was an NES. One of you was a Super NES.
Oh, Chris, you want to go first?
Yes and no. I was the NES.
Yeah, he was the NES. Technically, I was the Master System.
I think I have to go back and listen, but that's how we start. We ask someone about their first console or their first exposure to video games, what games interested them, and like usually tie that into why they're doing a podcast or how do video games influence whatever creative endeavor they're at. It's really casual. There's no awesome narrator voice in brief histories, which you guys do. Like, I think you guys could do like a full Retronauts style. The reason I like your podcast, I know we're kind of running out of time, but what I like about what you guys do is it's not tied to like current events. At any time, I can just go to Retro Hangover, scroll through and be like, I want to hear more about this game or that game. It doesn't matter if it's a 2-year-old episode or a 2-week-old episode. I really like that. I love the brief history part, and you guys should definitely keep doing that.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, I think as topical as we get as just trying to release episodes around like a notable time for the game, like the 35th anniversary, for example. But yeah, outside of that, I guess we try to keep it maybe as timeless as we can. So I'm glad that's translating over well.
I agree.
All right. Well, I suppose, having said all of that, if you are listening to this, and that means you have found us. So hello, welcome. Thank you for stopping by. We hope you enjoyed this episode. This is your first time here, then there's a few things that we might want to suggest to you. First and foremost, we do have a public Discord, and we've got a great little community going on there, and we would love to have you if you are not in there already. You can do that by heading over to bit.ly/RHP chat. That will give you an invite to our arcade floor channel. You can jump in, say hello, and then hop on over to some of the other channels, post some memes, listen to some 24/7 bits and beats music if you would like. We got some vaporwave going on in the other channel, so it's a good time. And if you like the show enough that you would like to support it in a more financial fashion, perhaps, then you can also do that by perusing our Patreon, which you can do by going to the beautiful URL that is gorpfans.com. That is GORPFANS.com, which was suggested by our very own patrons, as a matter of fact. Taking a look at the tiers and choosing one that fits you the best. For as little as $1 a month, you can get access to some really great bonus audio content in the form of full episodes in the RH Gaiden series. And if you decide to step it up to a higher tier, then you can also check out even more bonus content that we put out for you guys. And if you happen to be wondering what a GORP is, then you could also go over to our merch store, and that might inform you as to what that is. And you can do that by heading to bit.ly/RHP merch and picking yourself up a shirt or a mug or a bumper sticker or some other really random ass stuff that we have on there, like a tote bag or something. I don't know, whatever fits your fancy. But at any rate, Chris, do you want to talk about the stream Sundays real quick?
Yeah, sure. Every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern time-ish, as long as OBS and Twitch permit, we will be streaming something on twitch.tv/retrohangover. At the time of this recording, Shane has been doing some adventure games called The Last Door, which a lot of people have been really enjoying. So maybe we'll be continuing adventure games for a little bit. Who knows? We'll be playing whatever tickles our fancy for the moment. I think I'm planning maybe on playing some Super Monkey Island for the Sega CD because, yeah, why the fuck not? We'll see what happens. That's not a promise, by the way. But you never know at our Twitch stream. So come on and join us. We have a bunch of people who show up at that time, at that place, and provide fantastic commentary who generally insult us. And I have a great time with that. More specifically, they insult me, but every once in a while they insult Shane as well. And we appreciate your comical insults. I really don't think they're serious, but even if they are, I get a good laugh out of them. So we'll see you 9 p.m. Eastern time on twitch.tv/retrohangover. And if you don't catch it, you can find it on our YouTube channel.
All right. Well, with all of that being said, until next time,
play with your fuck off menu joysticks.
Shane here with a quick message. You know, the one rule Chris and I have always gone by regarding advertisements is this. It has to be something we use and can personally vouch for. If you know me, you know I love coffee, and Bones Coffee Company has been my go-to for home brewing for quite some time now. Their small batch beans come in an impressive variety of flavors like Mint Invaders from Chocolate Space, or Electric Unicorn, which I swear tastes exactly like Fruity Pebbles. And the best part? No added sugar or calories involved, just natural flavors infused right into the beans themselves. Build your own sample pack of 5 4-ounce bags to find out which flavors speak to you, or jump in head first with full 12-ounce bags. They've even got K-Cups. Step up your homebrew game with Bones Coffee by visiting bit.ly/RHPBones. That's bit.ly/RHPBONES.